Imagine. It's 3 days before Diwali.
Oh, the busiest time of the year.
Exactly. So your Indian retail chain is experiencing just unprecedented foot traffic, right?
Right.
And you're burning roughly, I don't know, $100,000 an hour on targeted digital marketing just to keep that momentum going.
Which is a terrifying amount of money to be spending blind.
Totally. So the CEO rushes into your office, and you are the chief financial officer in this scenario, and asks a really simple, very urgent question. Do we have the cash on hand to double the ad spend for the next 48 hours?
Sounds like a standard Tuesday for a CFO.
Right. But here's the kicker. If you open your sales CRM, the answer looks like a resounding yes. I mean, bookings are just through the roof.
But if you walk over to the accounting department,
Yeah, if you look at the enterprise resource planning software, the ERP, the answer is a terrifying no.
and it's not a glitch, right?
No, not a glitch at all. The money isn't missing. You are basically witnessing a data war. Two different departments operating with two completely different realities.
Yeah, and that is exactly why we're here today.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are speaking directly to you, the learner.
Whether you're an executive trying to, untangle your own company's chaotic data architecture,
Or a finance professional trying to pull your department out of the dark ages. Or, honestly, just someone who is insanely curious about how massive modern enterprises actually function under the hood.
Yeah.
You are in the right place.
Absolutely.
Our mission today is to explore how real-time financial dashboards are fundamentally transforming the role of the CFO, specifically within the hyper-dynamic, high-velocity landscape of the Indian market.
We're looking at how a company shifts from reactive, backward-looking reporting to proactive, predictive analysis.
So what are we actually looking at to figure this out?
Well, to map out this transformation, we are synthesizing a pretty deep stack of intelligence today.
Yeah, we've got some great sources.
We really do. We're looking at comprehensive, on-the-ground implementation blueprints from enterprise solution architects like Superboard and MYND Integrated Solutions.
And those are invaluable because they give us the exact mechanics, right?
Exactly. They give us the specific key performance indicators and the actual 3 to 6 month roadmaps that businesses are utilizing right now to deploy these dashboards.
But we aren't just looking at the technical manuals.
No, we're layering that practical guidance with elite thought leadership from Strategy Software. They tackle the deeply entrenched, almost philosophical problem of enterprise data fragmentation.
So we are going to deconstruct the widely sold myth of the single source of truth.
Yeah, and explore why simply throwing a massive budget at a new artificial intelligence tool often amplifies your corporate confusion rather than curing it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we want to understand where the CFO is going, we really have to look at the historical baggage they are dragging behind them.
Oh, the historical baggage is heavy.
It really is. For decades, the corporate world essentially viewed the chief financial officer as a highly paid scorekeeper.
Right. Their entire mandate was just to tell the board what happened last month.
And the tool of choice for this was the month-end management information system, the MIS, which was essentially a massive, highly fragile ecosystem of Excel spreadsheets.
Just millions of rows of data.
Complete nightmare. But the research we are looking at from firms like McKinsey and Deloitte indicates that this old model is completely dead.
Yeah, the CFO is now expected to be a strategic, forward-looking business partner.
And the data shows that enterprises utilizing advanced real-time analytics are improving their financial decision-making outcomes by 20 to 30%.
And that 20 to 30% jump in effectiveness, it's not coming from a team of accountants simply typing faster.
No, obviously not.
Right. It represents a fundamental shift in how finance operates, built on a concept our sources refer to as agility over autopsy.
Agility over autopsy. That's a striking phrase.
It really is.
But, an autopsy is precise. It gives you undeniable facts. Isn't there an inherent risk that prioritizing agility just means a leadership team making rapid, knee-jerk decisions based on incomplete, fluctuating live data?
Well, that is the exact friction point legacy accountants struggle with.
I can imagine.
But let's look at the mechanics of the traditional accounting autopsy. You wait until the calendar month closes. Then, your team spends 10 to 15 days chasing down expense reports, reconciling bank statements, formatting tables.
Just grueling administrative work.
Exactly. By the 15th of the following month, you finally get to examine the financial corpse to see what died and what survived.
Wow, financial corpse. That's grim.
But it's true. Yes, it is historically accurate down to the cent, but operationally, it is essentially useless.
'Cause it's too late.
Exactly. If your company suffered a massive bleeding cash leak on the fourth day of the month, say, a supplier unexpectedly changed their payment terms, you don't discover that wound until 6 weeks later.
So the damage is already done.
Right. Real-time dashboards replace the autopsy with continuous live telemetry. It allows for predictive modeling.
So you shift your orientation from asking what just happened to what is happening this exact second.
And more importantly, if this trend holds, what will happen to our cash reserves by next Thursday?
Okay, so if we look at it through a driving analogy, trying to run a high-growth enterprise on a month-end Excel MIS is basically like trying to drive a car down a busy highway while your windshield is completely painted black.
That is a terrifying image.
Right. Your only method of navigation is staring intensely into the rearview mirror.
You can see the road you just traveled with perfect, undeniable clarity.
You know exactly where you've been, but you have absolutely no idea if there is a brick wall 10 feet in front of your bumper.
Exactly. Real-time dashboards finally scrape the paint off the windshield for the CFO.
That captures the vulnerability perfectly.
And once you have that clear windshield, you have to change how you look at the road.
Right, because you can actually see where you're going now.
This brings us to the second core operational philosophy of modern dashboards: exception-based management.
Exception-based management. Okay.
Yeah. Consider the traditional month-end MIS report. It is typically a 100-page slide deck filled with dense tables, bar charts, and just thousands of line items.
Sounds exhausting.
It is. The human brain is simply not evolved to scan rows of static nominal data and instinctively spot the one anomalous variable buried on page 47.
Right, the cognitive fatigue sets in almost immediately. It just becomes numerical white noise.
Exactly.
Everything looks fine because it all looks the same.
Exception-based management flips the entire architecture of the workflow. Instead of forcing the CFO to wade through hundreds of pages of expected data.
Like the data that proves the machine is operating exactly as intended?
Exactly. Instead of that, the modern dashboard is programmed to suppress the noise and highlight only the anomalies.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
The system flags the exceptions. It isolates the sudden, unpredicted dip in operating cash flow.
Or it flashes a warning on an unusual spike in vendor liabilities.
Right. It zeroes in on a subtle drop in the gross margin of one specific product line in one specific regional territory.
So the dashboard physically brings the problem to the CFO's desk.
Exactly. Allowing them to deploy their highly valuable time purely on strategic interventions, rather than embarking on a multi-day hunting expedition just to find the issue.
Wait, so if I'm thinking about the day-to-day reality of a finance leader, does this mean the technology is fundamentally altering their cognitive load?
What's fascinating here is that it absolutely alters their cognitive load.
Because if you aren't spending 3 weeks out of a 4-week month manually consolidating data from a dozen different departments, your brain isn't consumed by the sheer mechanics of data entry.
Exactly. You're no longer trapped in the administrative friction.
Right.
When the dashboard automates that consolidation layer and provides live feeds, the CFO's cognitive capacity is liberated.
He can actually think about the future.
They transition from the exhausting task of asking, are these numbers mathematically correct, to asking, given that these numbers are correct, what do they mean for our capital allocation over the next 2 quarters?
It elevates their posture from administrator to visionary.
They finally have the mental bandwidth to run complex scenario planning.
But practically speaking, looking through a clear windshield is only an advantage if the dials on the dashboard are actually telling you the truth.
Oh, that is the million-dollar caveat.
Right. And this leads us directly into what the sources reveal as the hidden, fatal flaw of so many enterprise tech upgrades, the sheer devastation of data fragmentation.
And the absolute illusion of the single source of truth.
This is the graveyard of so many multi-million-dollar dashboard deployments, isn't it?
It really is. Projects don't fail because the visualization software lacked pretty charts.
Right. The charts are usually gorgeous.
They fail because the underlying architecture wasn't built to support actual human decision-making.
So what's the illusion here?
The pervasive illusion in the corporate world right now is that if you simply buy a massive cloud-based data warehouse, plug every departmental software system into it, and slap an elegant AI-driven dashboard on top.
Let me guess. You automatically magically generate a single source of truth.
Exactly. People think the software just fixes the reality.
But the thought leadership sources from strategy software are incredibly blunt about this. They point out that 99% of enterprise leaders admit that defining consistent business metrics across their tools is still a massive unresolved challenge.
99%. That's basically everyone.
And we need to be very precise about what data fragmentation actually means in this context.
Because it doesn't mean data is lost or corrupted.
Right. It means the exact same business metric receives fundamentally different definitions depending on which siloed system you are querying.
Let's dissect the most critical metric in any business. Revenue.
Oh, this should be good.
To a layperson, revenue is simple, right? It's the money coming in the door.
Right. Pretty straightforward.
But inside a complex enterprise, over in the CRM, the customer relationship management system utilized by the sales team, revenue almost always means booked revenue.
So a client signed a contract on Tuesday, so sales logs that total contract value as revenue today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you look at the ERP, the system managing the supply chain and invoicing revenue likely means billed revenue.
Meaning the invoices that have actually been generated and mailed out.
Right, and down to the finance department. Inside their general ledger software, revenue specifically means recognized revenue.
Which adheres to strict accounting protocols.
Exactly. It might dictate that the money is only recognized incrementally as the service is delivered over a 12-month period.
Wait, so if I'm tracking this, you have 3 distinct software systems championed by 3 powerful departments, producing 3 completely different numbers, all labeled with the exact same English word, revenue.
Yeah.
It makes total sense why those quarterly executive meetings devolve into total warfare.
You can't debate strategy when you're arguing over the definition of reality.
But here's where it gets really interesting. You would assume that bringing in a sophisticated artificial intelligence layer would cure this.
That's the modern reflex, right? Just throw AI at it.
Right. You just point the machine learning model at the messy data and say, find the pattern, figure out the real number.
But the sources explicitly state that AI does not fix data fragmentation.
Wait, really?
It actually makes it significantly worse.
How does it make it worse?
Because AI systems, at their core, are highly literal parsing engines. They depend on semantic consistency.
Okay, so if the meanings are different.
If a metric like revenue is defined in 3 conflicting ways across the organizational database, the AI doesn't possess the inherent business context to know which definition the CEO prefers on a Tuesday.
Oh, I see.
It will faithfully, rapidly process all the conflicting inputs and confidently output multiple completely conflicting answers.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Or, even more dangerously, it will blend them.
Wait, blend them, like an average.
Yeah, it will generate an aggregate number that looks incredibly polished, formats beautifully into an executive summary, but is fundamentally meaningless.
Because it has mathematically mashed, booked, billed, and recognized revenue into an unholy soup.
Exactly. AI just exposes the internal misalignment with more speed and authority.
So if I'm understanding Saurabh Upyankar from Strategy Software correctly, he points out this is a semantic problem, not a technical one.
That is the crucial distinction.
Let me try to break that down. A technical problem means System A literally lacks the API endpoints to transmit data to System B.
But we've largely solved that with cloud architecture.
Right. A semantic problem means the CRM and the ERP don't speak the same language even when using the same words.
Exactly.
So centralizing your data into a giant data lake doesn't fix a semantic problem.
Not at all.
If the CRM thinks a handshake is revenue and the ERP thinks cleared funds in the bank is revenue, putting them in the same database is just putting 2 people who speak different languages in the same room without a dictionary.
That is the perfect distillation of the issue. As the source argues, if you take 50 different localized databases, each harboring its own mutated definitions of key metrics,
And you dump them all into a massive data warehouse.
or apply data virtualization on top, you haven't actually created a single source of truth.
What have you created then?
All you have done is spend a fortune to build a 51st database. You just centralize the confusion.
Wow. And the bleed from this, the actual cost to the enterprise, is staggering.
It's massive.
Oh,
And it's not just the software licensing fees.
it is the human capital. Your senior leaders, the most expensive talent in the building, are burning hours cross-referencing spreadsheets before they can even begin a strategic conversation.
And capital is dangerously misallocated because product development bets are being wagered on inconsistent metrics.
You have scenarios where sales commissions are being paid out on booked revenue numbers that finance says won't actually hit the bank account for another 9 months.
Right. And eventually, human nature takes over.
Trust in the central reporting completely erodes, doesn't it?
Yes. The executives stop looking at the expensive dashboard and retreat back to their own private, siloed Excel sheets.
Which brings us to how you actually cure the disease rather than just treating the symptoms.
The single source of truth is not a piece of software you can purchase.
Right. The sources are very clear on that.
It is a human agreement. It is what our sources define as a metric contract.
A metric contract. Okay, how does this actually function in reality, not just in theory?
Well, the most grueling phase of implementing a real-time dashboard isn't writing the API scripts.
I figured as much.
It is locking the chief financial officer, the chief operating officer, and the head of sales in a room and refusing to let them leave until they sign a binding written contract.
A contract that does what?
That explicitly defines the top 10 to 20 critical metrics for the entire enterprise.
Okay, so like what exactly, down to the specific database fields, constitutes annual recurring revenue?
Exactly. What is the precise temporal definition of a churned customer?
Or what is the exact mathematical formula this company will use to calculate customer acquisition cost?
Right. Once that canonical definition is fiercely debated, agreed upon, signed, and locked in.
That logic is what gets hard-coded into the data warehouse and the AI layers.
And crucially, every single conflicting legacy definition floating around in the local departmental systems must be ruthlessly deprecated.
So the dashboard is only permitted to display the contract-backed metrics. But practically speaking, how does a CFO enforce a metric contract?
It's definitely not easy.
Let's take the head of sales. They are heavily compensated based on commission and performance bonuses, right?
Oh, yeah.
They have a massive vested financial interest in keeping their definition of booked revenue looking as high and as immediate as possible.
Absolutely.
They aren't going to willingly sign a corporate contract that effectively lowers their reported numbers or delays their payouts.
No, they will fight it tooth and nail.
It feels like everyone will deny there is a fragmentation problem just to protect their turf.
That political friction is very real, which is why the thought leadership source provides a brilliant, highly confrontational diagnostic exercise to force the issue out into the open.
Ooh, confrontational. I like it. What is it?
It's called the 48-hour diagnostic test. If you are an executive and you want to prove to your board that your company suffers from metric fragmentation, do not hire a management consulting firm.
Save the money.
Just send a simple email. Ask the head of finance, the head of sales, and the head of product to each independently report two things back to you.
Okay, what two things?
Last quarter's total revenue and the current exact number of active customers. Tell them they have 48 hours to pull the data from their own systems.
Oh, I can see the panic setting in already. You just wait for the replies.
Exactly. And when you finally get those 3 emails, you don't just look at the final numbers, because the numbers will inevitably differ.
You forensically compare the underlying assumptions.
You compare the date boundaries they used. Did one department use a rolling 30 days while another used a strict calendar month?
You compare the exclusions. Did the product team exclude free trial users from the active count, while sales included them to inflate the user base?
You compare the verbal definitions they provide in the email body. The cavernous gap between those 3 emails is your company's fragmentation score.
It immediately proves to the executive board that the crisis isn't a lack of software.
No, the crisis is that the company lacks a shared grammar.
That is devastatingly simple. It removes the theoretical debate and makes the dysfunction undeniably obvious.
It really does.
So let's fast forward. Let's assume the CFO goes through the political pain, the executives sign this metric contract, the data definitions are scrubbed clean, the APIs are flowing smoothly.
A best-case scenario.
Right, and the CFO finally has that beautiful real-time windshield.
Yes.
How does this newly unified financial dashboard actually alter the behavior of the rest of the company?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a properly implemented real-time financial dashboard effectively becomes the central nervous system for the entire organization.
Because historically, the finance department operated as a black box.
Completely. The rest of the company only interacted with finance when a departmental budget was slashed or an expense report was rejected.
But a unified dashboard democratizes financial visibility.
Let's look at how this changes the game for the sales and revenue operations teams.
Okay.
In a traditional structure, sales is incentivized entirely on the act of closing the deal. Their metric of success is the signature on the contract.
Right, the classic always be closing mentality. They throw the signed contract over the wall to finance and move on to the next prospect.
Exactly. They are rarely mandated to monitor the creditworthiness of the client or the actual cash collection timeline.
But when you integrate a real-time dashboard, sales leaders suddenly have live visibility into metrics like days sales outstanding, DSO.
And dynamic customer credit limits. Imagine a scenario where a major client is chronically delinquent on their payments, and their DSO stretches out to 90 or 120 days.
In the old system, sales wouldn't even know.
But now, the dashboard flags the delinquency instantly.
Oh, wow. So the sales representative is dynamically prevented in the CRM from extending further credit or shipping more product to a defaulting client until the outstanding balance is settled.
It forces the sales team's targets to align with actual cash realization, not just paper bookings.
I see. It's almost like playing a massive multiplayer strategy video game.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Previously, everyone was technically playing the same game, but they were all looking at their own individual isolated maps, and the rest of the board was obscured by this dense fog of war.
Yes. Sales couldn't see the impending cash flow crisis. Procurement couldn't see that sales volume was dropping.
But the real-time dashboard systematically clears the fog of war for everyone simultaneously.
The sales team finally sees the steep financial cliffs that the CFO has been warning them about for months.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize the shift, and that removal of the fog of war is equally transformative for procurement and supply chain management, right?
Absolutely. Procurement heads can log into the dashboard and view live budget utilization rates superimposed against real-time inventory holding costs.
So if they observe that the warehouse holding costs for a specific expensive raw material are suddenly spiking because it isn't being consumed by the manufacturing floor,
They can instantly proactively halt all new automated purchase orders for that material.
they are empowered to prevent departmental budget overruns before they happen.
Exactly. Rather than receiving an angry reprimand from finance 3 weeks after the capital has already been misspent.
And human resources gets pulled out of their administrative silo, too.
They do.
The implementation guides from MYND Integrated Solutions explicitly mention HR utilizing these dashboards to monitor real-time payroll burdens and sales commission payouts mapped directly against the actual revenue those employees are generating.
It fundamentally changes the conversation. HR stops talking about headcount as an abstract, static metric.
And starts managing workforce efficiency dynamically tied to live cash flow.
Precisely. And perhaps most importantly, the CEO and the board of directors gain unprecedented 24/7 visibility into the health of the organism.
So if the CEO has a crucial investor call on a Saturday morning, they don't have to panic call the CFO on Friday night and demand a custom report be built over the weekend.
The data is just there.
Yeah.
It is pre-verified by the metric contract, mathematically sound, and ready to inform high-stakes strategic pivots.
This cross-functional visibility is the catalyst that transitions a company from functioning as a clumsy group of isolated competing fiefdoms into a unified, highly agile organism.
Which brings us to a really vital pivot in our deep dive today.
Yes, let's talk about India. Because this concept of agility, this capacity to react instantly as a unified organism, isn't just a luxury or a nice-to-have upgrade.
Not at all.
When you are operating an enterprise within the Indian market, it is a strict requirement for absolute survival.
The Indian enterprise landscape is notoriously unique, and our sources dive deep into the very specific high-stakes realities of doing business there.
We are talking about navigating one of the most fiercely dynamic economies on the planet.
Fiercely dynamic is almost an understatement.
Right.
The Indian market presents a specific gauntlet of challenges that render static, month-end MIS reporting not just inefficient, but genuinely hazardous to a company's survival.
We are looking at a corporate landscape characterized by constantly shifting regulatory frameworks, staggeringly intricate tax compliance networks, highly volatile currency exchange rates,
and massive, culturally driven spikes in domestic consumer demand. Let's examine one of the most stressful operational periods for an Indian CFO, festive season working capital.
You mean the Diwali rush?
Exactly. During major cultural and consumer events like Diwali, the fundamental velocity of business in India accelerates exponentially.
For retail giants and fast-moving consumer goods companies, the FMCG sector, the operational stress must be immense.
Inventory moves off the shelves at blinding speeds, and simultaneously the cash burn required to sustain targeted marketing blitzes and emergency logistics spikes dramatically.
Let's walk through a granular scenario here. If you are an FMCG CFO relying on a month-end spreadsheet, how does the Diwali rush actually break your company?
Well, you are essentially flying a commercial jet blindfolded during a hurricane.
Okay, paint that picture for me.
Let's say it's day 3 of a 10-day festive surge. Your data from last month tells you absolutely nothing.
Because it's a completely different environment now.
Right. The acute danger is liquidity trapping. Your available cash gets aggressively tied up in slow-moving inventory, say, premium gift boxes that aren't selling as expected in the southern regions.
Meanwhile, your fast-moving, high-demand goods like standard confectionery in the northern regions are about to stock out.
But because you lack real-time visibility, you don't realize your capital is trapped in the south, and you don't realize you lack the liquid cash to execute an emergency reorder for the north.
So you missed the revenue window entirely.
You missed the window, and you were stuck with dead stock after the festival ends.
Brutal.
But a real-time cash flow dashboard changes the physics of the problem. The CFO can monitor the cash position and inventory velocity on an hourly basis.
They can dynamically shift marketing capital away from the slow-moving goods and reallocate it to push high-margin items,
ensuring they capture the maximum possible revenue during that narrow festive window without ever triggering a fatal liquidity crisis.
That makes total sense. It's about moving the money to where the fire is hottest.
Exactly.
Now, if we're talking about cash trapped in the system, that brings up the other massive cash trap in the Indian enterprise landscape. GST.
The Goods and Services Tax.
I know this was a monumental regulatory overhaul for the country a few years ago, but how does a real-time dashboard actually solve the mechanical headache of GST compliance?
This is arguably one of the most tangible, immediate ROI drivers for dashboard implementation in India.
Really? Just the tax compliance?
Yes. The Indian tax regulations are incredibly strict regarding the mechanism of the input tax credit, or ITC. To put it simply, to claim this vital credit, a company's internal purchase invoices must strictly and perfectly match the data that their vendors upload onto the government's centralized GST portal.
It is a massive, highly punitive matching exercise.
Exactly.
Wait, let me make sure I understand the mechanics of this. If my manufacturing company buys steel from a supplier and I pay the GST on that transaction, the law says I can claim that tax back as a credit against my own tax liabilities.
That's right.
But I only get that money if my supplier actually logs into the government portal and accurately reports that exact transaction.
Correct. Your cash flow is entirely dependent on your vendor's compliance behavior.
Wow.
And if you are relying on manual legacy month-end reconciliation, the timeline destroys you.
Because you don't know there's a problem until it's time to file.
Right. You might discover on the 28th of the month, right before the filing deadline, that 40 of your key vendors haven't uploaded their invoices, or they uploaded them with typos in the invoice numbers.
Suddenly, the portal rejects the match.
You cannot claim your input tax credit. That money is blocked by the government. It is a catastrophic hit to your operating cash flow for that month.
Oh, wow. So how does the technology intercept this? If I have a real-time dashboard that is directly integrated via API with both my internal ERP and the government's GST network.
It acts as an early warning radar. It's exception-based management in its purest form.
The API constantly pings the government portal.
The dashboard flags unmatched invoices the moment the discrepancy occurs, not 3 weeks later.
It highlights the specific vendors who are non-compliant in real time, color-coding the exact amount of cash that is currently at risk.
Exactly. The finance team can immediately pick up the phone, call the vendor on the 4th of the month, force them to correct the upload, and ensure that the cash flow is never blocked at the end of the tax period.
It transforms tax compliance from a reactive end-of-month panic attack into a proactive daily cash preservation strategy.
It's a lifesaver.
That is massive. You are essentially using the API to babysit your supply chain's accounting habits.
That's a good way to put it.
Let's look at one more uniquely Indian challenge highlighted in the sources. Currency volatility. The rupee.
This is the big one.
If a CFO misses a dashboard alert regarding exchange rates, are we talking about a minor rounding error on the balance sheet or a legitimate crisis?
Depending on the sector, we are often talking about the difference between posting a healthy profit and taking a severe company-threatening loss.
Wow.
Consider the Indian IT services sector, or heavy manufacturing. An Indian IT firm is heavily reliant on overseas contracts, likely billing their clients in US dollars or euros.
Right.
Conversely, an Indian manufacturer is likely importing vast quantities of raw materials priced in foreign currencies. Both models leave the enterprise highly exposed to the volatility of the Indian rupee, the INR.
Because if the rupee suddenly depreciates, it drops in value against the dollar, the cost of those imported raw materials for the manufacturer suddenly skyrockets, wiping out their margin.
Exactly.
And if the rupee suddenly strengthens, the value of that IT firm's dollar-denominated revenue shrinks the moment they convert it back to local currency to pay their developers.
And if you don't realize the extent of your exposure to these fluctuations until the month-end report is generated, the damage is already done. You absorbed the loss.
So how does a real-time dashboard fix that?
A real-time dashboard integrates live foreign exchange forex rates directly with the company's open invoice data and accounts receivable.
The CFO can see their exact dollar-for-dollar currency exposure updated by the minute.
If the dashboard alerts them to a sudden unfavorable macroeconomic currency trend, they can immediately execute forward contracts with their bank or purchase hedge options at the precise optimal moment.
They lock in a survivable exchange rate and artificially protect their profit margin from the volatility. The sources provided a really stark side-by-side comparison of enterprises dealing with these exact pressures. There was a crisis example of a retail enterprise that tried to navigate this environment without real-time visibility. What actually broke them?
It was a cascade failure of working capital.
Meaning?
They faced severe cash shortages because delayed payments from major B2B customers went completely unnoticed for months. The data was buried on page 60 of an Excel spreadsheet that no one had time to read.
Because the leadership team reacted so late to the missing cash, they had to scramble to secure emergency short-term loans just to cover payroll and basic logistics.
Yes. And the punitive interest rates on those emergency loans increased their overall financing costs by 25%.
Oh, that's brutal.
It entirely derailed their long-term expansion plans because all their capital was suddenly diverted to servicing high-interest debt.
And contrast that disaster with the manufacturing firm detailed in the Superboard source. They implemented a centralized cash flow dashboard to monitor those exact same variables, delayed receivables, and looming supplier obligations.
And what a difference it made.
Right. By having that real-time visibility, they could aggressively improve their collection processes, calling clients the day an invoice was late.
The result?
Mm-hmm.
They increased their available liquid cash by 15% within just 6 months.
They actually reduced their dependence on short-term credit lines.
It is night and day. One company pays a 25% penalty for operating in the dark,
Yeah.
and the other generates 15% more liquidity simply by turning the lights on.
It is the ultimate proof that the dashboard is not an IT upgrade. It is a strategic financial weapon.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, I acknowledge the undeniable power of these tools. Everything we've discussed makes perfect logical sense. But we have to address the elephant in the room. You are talking about a system that integrates legacy ERPs, cloud CRMs, HR payroll software, government GST portals, and live global currency feeds.
It's a lot of moving parts.
How does a massive, complex Indian corporation actually build this architecture without completely shutting down their daily operations for a year? I've seen enterprise IT projects.
We all have.
They are infamous for turning into multi-year boondoggles that burn tens of millions of dollars, exhaust the staff, and ultimately deliver nothing.
That is a highly rational fear. And it is precisely why the deployment blueprints from MY&D Integrated Solutions explicitly reject the traditional monolithic waterfall approach to IT.
So what did they do instead?
They outline a highly specific, phase-gated 3 to 6 month implementation roadmap. The secret is to treat the deployment as an agile sprint.
Okay, a 6-month sprint sounds way better.
But before the clock even starts on month 1, there is a vital prerequisite phase, the architectural readiness assessment.
Right. You have to check if the foundation is actually capable of supporting the skyscraper you want to build.
Precisely. You must ruthlessly assess the legacy tech stack. If an Indian enterprise is running heavily customized on-premise accounting software from 2012, establishing real-time API connectivity is going to be incredibly fragile, if not impossible.
A foundational migration to a modern cloud-based ERP ecosystem might be a mandatory first step.
But even more critical than the software is the data hygiene. As the sources note, if your underlying database is riddled with duplicate vendor codes, spelling errors, or years of unreconciled ledger entries, your shiny new dashboard will simply visualize a mess.
You have to aggressively scrub and normalize the data before you ever connect the pipes.
Which is the unglamorous, agonizing work that nobody in the company actually wants to do.
But if you skip it, the entire multi-million-dollar project is dead on arrival.
Exactly.
Okay, let's assume the data is finally clean. We have modern cloud software. We start the 6-month clock. Walk me through the psychology and the mechanics of month 1.
Month 1 is dedicated entirely to discovery and mapping, and it is arguably the most important phase. This is where the CFO must act as the absolute executive sponsor, wielding real authority.
To do what?
The objective is to define the top 10 crucial KPIs for the business. Not 50, not 100, just 10.
10 feels very small for a massive corporation.
The thought leadership sources explicitly invoke the design philosophy of Dieter Rams here.
Wait, Dieter Rams, the famous industrial designer who defined the aesthetic of brawn in the 20th century.
The very same.
How on earth does his hardware philosophy apply to enterprise software dashboards?
Ram's core design principles were less but better, and the insistence on usefulness before decoration.
Okay, I see where this is going.
A dashboard, at its core, is a product engineered to deliver rapid information. If you allow department heads to clutter the interface with 50 different pie charts, vanity metrics, and redundant gauges, you violate the fundamental principle of clarity.
You create a visual monster that the CFO will simply stop logging into because it demands too much cognitive effort to parse.
Exactly. Month 1 is an exercise in ruthless prioritization. You define those 10 critical KPIs, you force the executive team to sign the metric contract to lock in their semantic definitions, and you map exactly which database fields will feed them.
Less, but better. I love how that applies to data. So month 1 is the blueprint and the political warfare. What happens in month 2?
Month 2 is integration and data warehousing. This is where the heavy technical lifting occurs.
The actual coding.
Yeah. The data engineers and system architects step in to physically establish the API connections between the ERP, the HR platforms, and the banking portals.
They build out the centralized data warehouse, the structured repository, where this newly harmonized information will be consolidated and optimized for rapid querying by the visualization layer.
Right.
And month 3 is when the CFO finally gets to see something tangible.
Yes. Month 3 is prototyping. You develop the minimum viable product, the MVP dashboard.
But the key to momentum is that you do not try to boil the ocean. You don't try to track everything.
Exactly. You focus the MVP purely on the absolute, undeniable lifeblood of the enterprise, operating cash flow and top-line recognized revenue.
You get those specific metrics flowing perfectly into the visualization tools, whether the company has chosen Power BI, Tableau, or a specialized finance platform like Superboard.
Okay, so we have a working prototype delivering live cash visibility in 90 days. That is incredibly fast for an enterprise.
But month 4 sounds like where the project could hit a wall. What happens during user acceptance testing?
Month 4 is testing and refinement, and you are right, this is a massive psychological hurdle.
Because change is hard.
The veteran finance team is going to sit down, look at the sleek new dashboard, and then look at their trusty, highly customized Excel spreadsheet that they've used for a decade.
And if the numbers on the screen don't match the spreadsheet by even a single rupee,
Their instinct will be to immediately declare the software broken and retreat to the spreadsheet.
So month 4 is exhaustively dedicated to reconciling the live dashboard data against the legacy traditional reports to ensure absolute bulletproof mathematical accuracy.
You aren't just testing the software, you are actively building human trust in the new machine.
Because if the accountants don't trust it, they won't champion it to the rest of the company. That makes perfect sense. And then how do we bring it home in months 5 and 6?
Months 5 and 6 are for scaling and go live. Once the core cash flow and revenue metrics are implicitly trusted and adopted by the finance team, you begin rolling out the secondary modules.
You activate the procurement holding cost visibility, the live GST taxation flags, the HR payroll burden mapping.
And crucially, you conduct intensive enterprise-wide training. You have to teach sales, procurement, and operations how to actually interpret and utilize their newly granted visibility. Otherwise, the tool just sits there.
It is a very grounded, practical approach, a 6-month sprint, rolling out in controlled phases, proving value at every step.
It minimizes the risk significantly.
But ultimately, the CFO has to justify this to the board. They have to say, we spent 6 months and X amount of capital on this deployment. What are the hard, measurable ROI metrics they put on that slide to prove it was worth the pain?
There are a few highly concrete metrics to track. The most dramatic, undeniable proof of ROI is the reduction in financial close cycle time.
Right.
If your accounting team previously spent 15 exhausting days manually closing the monthly books, a successful dashboard implementation should compress that cycle down to 3 to 5 days.
One of the sources notes a specific case study where the close time dropped from 10 days to 6 days. Either way, you are reclaiming massive amounts of highly paid human hours.
Secondly, you monitor the volume of ad hoc reporting requests.
If the dashboard is truly functional, the constant barrage of emails asking finance to pull a quick custom report for my meeting should plummet because department heads can finally self-serve the data.
Exactly. And lastly, you track daily active usage, or DAU, by the leadership team. If the CEO and the operations heads are logging into the system every single morning, the tool is undeniably delivering strategic value.
But it's not a magic wand. There are systemic roadblocks that can derail even a perfect software deployment, right?
Absolutely. The single biggest ongoing threat is the GI-GO syndrome. Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, classic.
A real-time dashboard is only as real-time as the human beings physically entering the data into the source systems.
If a regional sales office in Chennai closes a massive deal on Tuesday morning, but the sales rep doesn't bother entering the contract details into the CRM until Friday afternoon before they leave for the weekend.
Your sophisticated, expensive, real-time revenue dashboard has been effectively lying to the CFO all week.
So how do you solve a human behavioral problem like that? You can't put a data scientist behind every sales rep.
You have two options. You either enforce strictly mandated daily data entry policies with severe operational consequences for failure, or, and this is the modern approach, you utilize technology to automate the capture so humans don't have to do it at all.
For example, implementing AI-driven optical character recognition, or OCR, for invoice processing.
Exactly.
Let's break down how OCR actually changes the workflow. It's not just taking a digital photograph of a piece of paper, right?
No, it's far more sophisticated. When a crumpled PDF invoice arrives from a vendor, the OCR software doesn't just store the image. It uses machine learning to map the spatial coordinates of the document.
Oh, what?
It identifies the string of text next to the phrase total due, extracts that specific numerical value, validates it via API against the original purchase order in the ERP, and instantly injects that value into the liabilities column of the CFO's dashboard.
The human keystroke and the delay associated with it is entirely eliminated.
This raises an important question, actually.
Yeah.
If your finance team is still spending 10 to 15 days every single month just trying to close the books and figure out what happened in the past,
Yeah.
what strategic opportunities are passing your company by during those 2 weeks?
While your team is busy conducting a historical autopsy, your competitors who have implemented real-time visibility are executing predictive analysis, securing their supply chains, hedging against currency drops, and adjusting their pricing dynamically.
It is the literal difference between merely documenting history and actively shaping the future.
Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground today. Let's do a comprehensive wrap-up of this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We started by examining the necessary evolution of the modern Indian CFO, moving away from being a passive scorekeeper burdened by month-end Excel autopsies and transforming into a strategic visionary empowered by real-time telemetry.
We explored the absolute fundamental necessity of establishing a metric contract to cure the silent, expensive killer of data fragmentation.
We proved that a single source of truth is not a piece of software you can buy. It is a human agreement you must enforce.
We also analyzed how these real-time dashboards systematically break down organizational silos, bringing sales, procurement, and HR out of the fog of war and aligning them with cash realities.
We looked closely at why this operational agility is uniquely critical in the Indian market for managing Diwali working capital spikes, proactive GST compliance, and rupee volatility.
And finally, we laid out the practical, phase-gated 3 to 6 month implementation roadmap to actually build this architecture, focusing on clean data, ruthless KPI prioritization, and measurable ROI.
To you, the learner listening to this right now, whether you are a C-suite executive trying to untangle your own company's chaotic data architecture, or just someone fascinated by how modern businesses actually survive in a complex world, the core lesson here is profound.
Technology, no matter how advanced, how expensive, or how heavily layered with AI, is completely useless without human agreement on what the data actually means.
The tools can only amplify the clarity or the devastating confusion that you build into the foundation.
Which leaves us with a final, somewhat provocative thought to consider as we close.
I'm ready.
We have spent this hour talking about the necessity of human executives defining the metric contract for the AI and the dashboard to faithfully follow. But as these machine learning systems become exponentially more advanced, capable of reading massive macroeconomic shifts, supply chain disruptions, and global market trends in real time.
Will we soon reach an inflection point where the dashboard itself redefines the metrics? Exactly. Will the AI eventually analyze the market and tell the CFO that their human definition of revenue or customer churn is mathematically obsolete for the new realities, effectively making the AI the ultimate author of the enterprise's reality?
Wow. From conducting manual accounting autopsies to AI literally defining the mathematical reality of the corporation. But until that day comes, the next time you sit in an executive meeting and three different departments proudly present three completely different numbers for the exact same metric, you now know exactly what is broken under the hood and exactly how to fix it. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.